Patriotism. There's a word thrown around a lot. It inspires passionate debate and is worn like a badge of honor, and with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. Love. For a word designed to unite, it can also be pretty divisive. You see, there's more to patriotism than flag sequin onesies and rodeos and quadruple cheeseburgers. Patriotism is love for a country, not just pride in it. But what really makes up this country of ours? What is it we love? It's more than just a huge rock full of animals like cougars and eagles, right? It's the people. Do me a favor. Close your eyes for a second. I want to try something out. Picture the average U.S. citizen. Think about it. How old are they? What's their hair like? How much can they bench? You got one? Okay. So chances are, the person you're picturing right now looks a little different than the real average American. There are 319 million U.S. citizens. 51% are female. So first off, the average American is a woman. Cool, huh? Is that what you pictured? 54 million are Latino, 40 million senior citizens, 27 million are disabled, 18 million are Asian. That's more people in the U.S. than play football and baseball combined. 9 million are lesbian, gay, bi, transgender, more than the entire amount of people that live in the state of Virginia. Around 10 million are redhead, 5.1 million play ultimate frisbee, and 3.5 million are Muslim. Triple the number of people currently serving in the United States military. Almost half the country belongs to minority groups. People who are lesbian, African American, and bi, and transgender, and Native American, and proud of it. We know that labels don't devalue us, they help define us, keeping us dialed into our cultures and our beliefs and who we are as Americans. After all, what's more American than freedom to celebrate the things that make us, us? I mean, it's stitched into the stars and stripes of this country, from the Constitution to Gettysburg, to our motto, E pluribus unum, from many, one. It's even in our country's name, the United States. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, disability, sexuality, race, religion, and any other labels. Because the second any of us judge people based on those labels, we're not really being patriotic, are we? So let's try this one more time. Close your eyes. Picture the average Joe or Joan or Juan or Jean-Luc. The real people who make America, America. And this year, whenever you feel the urge to don those star-spangled shorts, set off fireworks the size of my biceps to show love for our country, remember that to love America is to love all Americans. Because love has no labels.
This is your focus leader. Adjust the focus until the picture is sharp. Now adjust the sound to a normal volume. This is LSD. This is LSD. Peyote. DMT. STP. Mescaline.
psilocybin, hashish, and marijuana. That's right, marijuana is also a psychedelic drug. Because LSD is so much more potent than the others, about 300 times as potent as marijuana, about 50 times as potent as STP, about 130 times as... Because so little is known about LSD, let's talk about it first. This is the head of a pin, magnified 100 times. What you see now is 200 micrograms of LSD. That's the full dose to send a normal adult on an 8 to 10 trip. More than enough to do the same for 2 to 4 teenagers. There are some people who can have an LSD experience with only 25 to 35 micrograms. And we can barely see that with the naked eye. This aspirin tablet, it weighs 5 grams. Now, were it to be made only of LSD, there would be enough LSD for 165,000 people to take a real mind-bending trip. This much LSD would kill 20 people. The lethal dose is 15,000 micrograms. Now that's 1/millionth of an ounce. That's about what a particle of dust weighs.
Hi, I'm Tommy Rowe. By now it must be obvious to you, as it is to me, that LSD is very powerful stuff. And that's just what it is, stuff. It's not good, it's not bad, it's only a chemical, a drug. It's been around for about 20 years, and people have been trying it for about the last 5 or 6 years. There's some people who think that LSD is the greatest gift to mankind since Tutti Frutti ice cream. But there are many others who feel that LSD is bad news to the individual and to the world he lives in. For us to make our decisions, we'll have to listen and understand both sides before we make up our minds. While it would be very difficult to find people to tell you how good for you heroin is, or speed, or barbiturates, it's very easy to find people who just can't wait to tell you how great LSD, peyote, DMT, STP, mescaline, and of course marijuana is.
I don't really dig dropping pills, but you get the wildest highs on acid.
But the only time I think I've been able to understand myself was on an acid trip. Then things were really clear.
Now, I've taken LSD 42 times, and it hasn't done me any harm.
Why knock it? Some of our country's greatest minds drop acids. They couldn't all be dummies.
But everyone says when you drop some acid, the whole world becomes clear to you, like an open book.
What if you thought of it as a great adventure, a great experience, and you had someone with you for the whole trip?
I don't believe all that dumb stuff about chromosome damage. We would have seen all them deformed babies by now anyway.
That's basically what one side has to say in favor of LSD. Now let's hear what the other side has to say. Then we'll be able to make up our own minds. Let's hear from young people who have had their reasons for being down on LSD. Let's also hear from doctors, psychologists, and other experts who have tried LSD themselves. We've had a great deal of experience with LSD and the people who have taken it.
But the only time I think I've ever been able to understand myself was on an acid trip. Then things were really clear.
As a psychologist, I have to tell you that the understanding you think you have gained just doesn't fit in with the facts. Here are the facts. You've been on a number of trips, and we're both agreed that you're having even more problems with your school, your parents, and even your friends. Perhaps what you think or feel on a trip just doesn't fit in with the straight world which you must return to and must learn to live in. As far as understanding yourself is concerned, the only real understanding you could gain would come from having a bummer and then analyzing it, which would mean you'd have to want to try to have bummers and then attempt to understand them the way that psychologists analyze dreams, which, unless you are properly trained, you cannot do by yourself.
I don't really dig dropping pills, but you get the wildest trip on acid.
Yeah, but you can also get the wildest bummers. And you can never really be sure which it's going to be.
But what do you mean?
Nobody ever knows enough about the quality of the acid itself, or their own hidden hang-ups that would make it to be a real trip.
or a real bummer.
Yeah, but you've dropped acid.
My third trip was a real bummer, enough to make me not to want to go on a fourth.
What if you were really cool when you did it? The setting's just right. You're not uptight or paranoid about getting busted. What if you think of it as a great adventure, a great experience, and you have someone with you through the whole trip, someone straight who hasn't had any acid?
Well, it could be a great experience and a great adventure if you're really in the right frame of mind. If you're sure about the dose in the cap. If you could be absolutely certain there wouldn't be chromosome damage. If you won't feel guilty about what your parents would think. And if you're sure you couldn't get busted because it is against the law. But how can you be sure that for the 8 to 16 hours the trip will take, that your straight friend, your babysitter, will be reliable, will stay with you and be able to handle any problems you might get into and not have a contact trip recurrence of his own just from watching you on yours? Lots of luck.
Why knock it? Some of our country's greatest minds drop acid. They couldn't all be dummies.
Who, for example? Who's one of these great minds?
You don't understand. I keep explaining it, but you don't understand. LSD, or mescaline even, if you just let it happen, wow, you find you can really love your fellow man. Even when you come down, you can really love your fellow man.
No, I don't agree with you. I mean, what kind of a person are you if you can only love your fellow man if you're taking drugs?
But LSD and mescaline open your mind, your feelings. They make you feel you can just about love everybody.
But I always hear that, Laurie. I mean, I think kids that take a lot of acid must have some really big hang-ups. How can they be capable of loving anyone?
Gee, Laurie, it's easy to say you love everybody, but it's very hard to find just one person to love.
Who says you can't love one person when you're on acid? What is there to stop you?
I say you can't. I mean, it takes over 10 hours for an LSD trip, right?
Right.
So the kids that are involved in LSD don't have time for anything but themselves. They don't have time for anybody, whether it be just one person or everyone in their lives.
You guys are just not with it. You belong back in the Dark Ages with the cavemen. How do you expect to get on in this world if you don't keep up with what's going on?
Know what's wrong with the whole world.
But everyone says when you drop some acid, the whole world becomes clear to you, like an open book.
I've got news for you. It would take more than LSD for me to understand what's wrong with the whole world, or even our local politics. Honey, you may think that you know things when you're up, but you can't really know any more than you already knew before you took the LSD.
You may have feelings with LSD about what you know, feelings you've never felt before. But you could never know what you haven't learned yet.
Evelyn, I've been trying to tell you something, but you never give me a chance.
I'm listening. Why don't you tell me what you're going to say?
I've been thinking, we should try some acid. I hear it's a real cool trip.
Sure, and so is cocaine. But where are we going to find that kind of money? Besides, if anyone finds out, we'll be in a lot of trouble. Man, like cocaine is a hard drug.
I'm talking about acid, dummy. LSD, not cocaine.
Don't tell me about acid. I know too many kids around here that they tell me that they've been on bad trips on LSD. They saw rats, roaches in different sizes, shapes, and colors. It was like a nightmare. That stuff ain't for me. No way.
But Mrs. Andrade, isn't it true that everybody's being uptight about those freaky chromosomes? Isn't it true that most scientists don't agree on chromosome breakage? Besides, does it matter as long as I don't drop any acid while I'm pregnant? If LSD won't kill my chromosomes, the pollution in the air and water will. So what's the difference?
The difference is we're talking about two different things. We know that if we don't take LSD, we won't damage your chromosomes. All scientists know that it's too soon to know exactly what the damage will be, especially to your children and your children's children.
But water and air pollution are killing us anyway.
Well, that could be. But I don't agree that we should just sit back, swallow some acid, and say, well, man, pollution's going to kill us anyway. This time the whole country is worried about pollution, and things are being done about it all the time. How much are we doing about it if all we do is complain and swallow a drug? Not much better than bad people doing bad things about our water and air. This world's in bad shape, but it's the world that your generation is going to have to run in the next 10 to 30 years. So what kind of preparation is LSD, STP, DMT, peyote, mescaline, or marijuana for what you're going to have to do to straighten it out?
Oh, come on. Mescaline is a natural drug. What could be wrong with something that's natural? It's made out of cactus buttons or mushrooms, or is that peyote? Well, however it's made, it's natural. And you don't get chromosome damage from something that's natural.
Maybe you don't get chromosome damage from mescaline, but are you sure there aren't any other kinds of damages? Like from a mental hang-up?
Oh, Paula, it never hurt the Indians, and they used it for thousands of years in their religious ceremonies.
Sure, I know, but for how many ceremonies a year? How many times a week? And were their minds and bodies fully developed? Or were they still kids, teenagers? And do you know whether they would wander all over the place where they could get hurt? Or just sit there safe and stoned in their teepees? And I'm sure they didn't have to cross 42nd Street and Broadway, or Sunset and Vine when they were stoned.
Well, of course not. You know they led very simple lives.
That's the point. It's much easier for one of us to develop a hang-up on a drug like mescaline. But it can become a crutch. There are too many people who just can't hack living in our very big and mixed-up life. You know, a drug doesn't have to do damage to your chromosomes to do damage to you.
Oh, that's an old argument.
Do you need a new one?
Well, you've seen two sides of the LSD psychedelic question. But if you really think of it, there have been about 20 sides to the question. And we've had a chance to hear that many people speak their minds. While it's possible that some things were left out, we did hear from the most important and most strongly felt opinions about LSD. Now it's your turn. Now you have to decide based on what you have learned and what you already knew. One, is it worth the risk to your mind and body to drop acid for kicks or knowledge about yourself and the world you live in? Two, are you sure you're the kind of person who will not get hung up on acid or won't go into other drugs? And three, can any of your personal problems be solved by LSD? And last and not least, will your dropping acid or other drugs do anything for anyone else in the world? Will it do anything for all those people LSD is supposed to make you love, your fellow man? You decide.
turn on, tune in, and drop out. Drop out of high school, drop out of college, drop out of graduate school, drop out of junior executive, drop out of senior executive, turn on, tune in, drop out.
The importance of that to me is that it was a demonstration on the part of the baby boom generation of their numbers, of their strength, of their clout, of their power, which is just straight quantity numbers. There were 76 million Americans born between the years 46 and 64. They were trained by Dr. Spock to be demand-fed. They were the first consumer species. They were the first electronic species. But the very fact that you were an American and young meant that you deserved the world. And I don't apologize for being kind of goofy, because at the same time, we had Johnson running the country, sending 500,000 troops to Vietnam. We stopped that. And we had J. Edgar Hoover, total madman, running our secret police. So we did great, but I don't want to be held responsible for the day-to-day quotes, because literally we were out there in the front lines just making it up as we went along. And I give us this credit. We were willing to take risks. We were willing to be holy fools. We were willing to make asses of ourselves. But let's not hang these portraits of ourselves making fools of ourselves on the walls of the Smithsonian Institute.
The word hallucination is defined as an apparent perception, as by sight or hearing, for which there is no real or external cause. From this word is derived the name given to a special group of drugs, the hallucinogens.
I don't usually see something that's an actual real thing that I could describe as, sometimes, one time I saw a lot of faces. Just all these faces appeared in front of me. And they were children's faces and oriental faces and old faces and just all kinds of different faces in front of me. And one time I looked in the mirror and I saw just my face just went through all these changes of different emotions and ages, and I could feel all of the things that I saw.
Among these drugs, the hallucinogens, are included mescaline, a chemical taken from the peyote cactus, psilocybin, extracted from a variety of Mexican mushroom, DMT, synthesized from the compound tryptamine, and of course, LSD-25, a derivative of lysergic acid, and currently the best known of the hallucinogens. From the very beginnings of unrecorded time, men have reached for substances in the world around them that would alter, extend, and materially change their perception of reality. The reasons? Loneliness and fear, boredom and a desire for the new and the unknown, exploration and experimentation. The reasons, as varied and as many as the grains of sand on a beach.
In 1965, because I was curious about it. I had several friends who had taken it, and they told me that they had, very good experiences with it, and I was just curious.
Well, I was curious what I read and what I've heard, and if it could help, I was just looking for something.
Sort of because I had heard it makes you not only closer with yourself, but with everybody, this sort of love, peace type thing. And I really wanted to find out if this was true.
It was a kick. It was a thrill. You know, when I first started taking it, it was to explore myself. Well, I found I could only go so far before I just ran dead up against myself, and I couldn't go any farther. And then after that, I just started taking it for kicks, you know, just to do something.
Some have used these drugs to journey into the uncharted tunnels of the mind in search of medical and scientific truth. Others look behind the curtain just for kicks. Whatever the reason, the fact of the matter is, the use of these drugs is on the rise, and it would seem valuable and interesting to inquire into cause and effect. Since LSD is the hallucinogen drug currently most popular and in greatest demand, we will center our attention here, and later draw broad conclusions concerning all of the mind-bending drugs. As a starter, here are some hard facts worth considering. LSD is incredibly powerful. Eating or injecting even as small a quantity of LSD as 1/280,000th of an ounce can cause such symptoms as hallucination, distortion, panic, impulses toward violence, suicidal acts, and psychosis. Today, we know quite a bit about what it does, but very little about how it does it. Scientific studies have shown that the physical effects of LSD include an increase in blood pressure, heart rate, and blood sugar. These physiological changes are often accompanied by nausea, chills, flushes, irregular breathing, trembling, and sweating. Recent research on animals has shown that LSD may cause cell damage and lead to serious abnormalities and malformations in the offspring. In one study, 4 or 5 pregnant animals were given a single injection of LSD. The results showed early abortion, stillborn, and underdeveloped offspring. In the culture of human blood cells, it was found that LSD damaged the chromosomes in the white cells. In addition to these physical symptoms, there is clear evidence of serious psychological and emotional disturbances resulting from even a single use of LSD. The group use of the hallucinogens at parties is becoming a familiar part of the scene. An atmosphere is created, and mass use of the drug becomes the central factor in the lives of many young men and women. The problem is that while the drug is not physically addicting, there is considerable evidence that it can cause psychological dependence. So let's count the cost and take a good look at the results.
I remember once I wasn't using LSD, it was peyote, which is reasonably similar. And I was in bed with a young lady, and I turned and I looked at her face, and her face distorted into sort of a flesh-dripping monster face. You know, features became drawn, and like jowls hung, and she grew fangs. And I quickly turned my head away, and I told myself this couldn't be so. And for about an hour, I wouldn't look at her face again. It was really frightening.
I could see all around me, no matter which way I was facing. It was just real frightening. I went into this survival land, and I was afraid everyone was going to go there. and that things were never going to be the same, and that everyone was going to become real vicious and hateful and just climb on top of each other to get what they wanted. And I never thought the world was going to be any different than that.
A lot of times everything vibrates. I look at chairs, and I can see the waves in them, and it's pulsating, vibrating. And this, everything turns into vibrations. It's like everything is falling apart. My eyes are an electronic microscope, and I can see all the atoms in everything. Everything pulsates.
Took the acid around 2 in the morning and started reading this book. And there are sections in it that give instructions to a person who is dead. And they tell him to do certain things and hang on to certain things and let go of other certain things, allowing the experience to happen to you naturally. And in the course of that, I got very confused as to whether I was alive or whether I was dead. I mean, it was really very, very far out to just not know whether I was alive or dead. So if I'm dead, what is happening? What's been happening with my life if I've been dead all this time? You know, what is the truth behind all of this?
All the results are not yet in. The evidence is inconclusive. The only thing we know for sure is that we just don't know enough. In carefully controlled experiments, interesting results have been reported on the therapeutic use of LSD with the mentally ill, the drug addict, the terminal cancer patient. And in the VA hospital in Topeka, Kansas, a special research program for alcoholics.
Well, this program was started in January of this year, where we began treating 5 patients for 26 days. We bring them in on one Monday, and they spend 1 week of getting acquainted, having all the tests and examinations done to keep them busy for the whole week, day and night practically. The second Monday, we give them a small dose of LSD in the 5-man ward together. This is to help the group pull together, and in their group experience during this 26 days to also get some good from this. Then the third Monday, we give them a larger dose individually and have each one of them cared for by one of these teams who have associated with them, and they give them their complete support. And this is where we aim for the so-called psychedelic experience. It seems to work pretty well. Of course, it takes time to work through. Also, in this program, we bring these men back every 4 months for 3 days, and this follow-up is quite important.
Some of the things that are outstanding is I know I kept fighting the religious music. I didn't know why then, but Dr. Coran kept urging me to find out why I was fighting this. And I remember I was just literally scared to death.
The thing that affected me as far as the first patient is concerned was the openness which he talked with me. The quality also seemed to be more realistic than he has shown before.
These qualities in my head, the good qualities, of course, virtue, love, trust. And then I seen the other ones, hate, anger, distrust. I seen them all in my head, and it was like I was strangling myself, like I had to get rid of all the bad qualities, and I was strangling myself fighting against them.
And especially the looking at the two sides in his head in this process. These things were thought about rather deeply, and the thing that makes the difference here is the emotion that goes along with them.
And I just reached up, and it was like somebody grabbed me and brought me up.
Mm-hmm.
And I interpret this as, for the first time in my life, I wanted love. And I think this is the thing that was probably my biggest problem,
is that I thought everybody was forcing it on me and I wasn't going to let them.
Yeah.
But it's not a question
I
of
think
forcing,
from
it's a question
hearing this man report his experience that there definitely is a change as of now. As far as prognosis is concerned, time.
There are currently over 50 research projects in progress under the auspices of the Food and Drug Administration and the National Institute of Mental Health, all part of our continuing search to discover more about the hallucinogens. The questions remain. The mind-bending drugs seem to offer so much, but what do they really deliver?
As to what it has to offer, that's a difficult question, because what we've seen here have been some things that I don't think most kids thought they were getting when they took the drug. We've seen some kids that have had prolonged psychosis. Some have had to go to state hospitals. Some have been treated for 2 or 3 months and have been able to leave UCLA. Some of them have had severe depressions. Some have been very confused. And some of the groovy hallucinations and the colors that they wanted, they couldn't stop. They got tired of it after 12 or 18 hours, but they couldn't stop the colors.
How do they work, and what are the long-range effects of this drug on human personality?
Well, we don't know a great deal about long-range effects. People always are asking about chronic brain damage. What we do know, first of all, is that the electroencephalogram, or brainwave test, on this we see in electrodes that are on the scalp and also depth electrodes planted inside the brain, we see changes from LSD in man and animals after a normal dose, and these changes last from 1 to 2 weeks after administration. In addition, we also see the reoccurrences. You take LSD once, the effect wears off in 12 to 16 hours, then up to a year later, either with stress or without stress, without ever taking the drug again, you have the same reoccurrences. The people call them flashes or flashbacks. Reoccurrences of all the LSD symptoms in their original intensity. Certainly this implies that something chronic is going on in the brain.
Do these drugs really make possible a richer, more productive, happier life?
When we follow them along, what we're impressed with is their whole style of life may change. That instead of being involved in productive activity, they claim that they feel better, and yet this feeling better is alongside of a business where they've withdrawn from life, they're disregarding their personal appearance, they don't really care about how they function in the rest of the world, and they're involved in a kind of a pseudo-philosophic concern with life and themselves, with a real absence of contact with other human beings. So it's this interesting business of a kind of withdrawal and the statement that this kind of life makes them feel much better and more insightful.
Should the federal government exercise any control over these drugs? And if so, why?
It's a simple matter from our point of view that you can't let something get out into general distribution until it has shown some therapeutic potential. And it has shown it under certain conditions, and you can predict fairly well what's going to happen when you give this drug to a large number of people. This hasn't been shown yet, so we have to be very careful in trying to carry out the necessary research that's going to establish whether or not it has a significant therapeutic potential for people. If it does...
Questions that must be answered. And because we do not know enough, the United States government controls the manufacture and use of this drug in the interest of all the people. Like all the new drugs, the government feels that a reasonable degree of controlled scientific investigation must provide the answers. LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, DMT, and the other hallucinogens, the mind-bending drugs. Do they extend the range of the human mind, or do they simply offer an easy escape from the demands of this world and time?
I get up and make love and play the guitar and eat, go down to the beach and go swimming and and occasionally write some things when I feel like writing, and think about how I'm going to get a little more money to not starve to death. And
it gets you out of that whole intellectual academic framework that you've been taught to be in all the years that you've gone to school.
Not only emotional hang-ups, but social hang-ups. Don't do this and don't do that, and you shouldn't associate with these people and this and that. The things that, mores, you might say, that I was brought up with.
I get flashes of people seeing me, and it's kind of a schizophrenic thing. In a way, I want people to see me, and sometimes I don't.
I'd get up and I'd feel like someone had a rawhide band around my forehead, and it was just such a pressure that by afternoon I'd be crying. So every morning I'd wake up with this pressure, and every afternoon I'd cry.
Do they make possible creative achievement and a more valid and intense perception? Or do they merely substitute an unreal fantasy world for the sometimes harsh facts of reality?
Oh, yes, I think that I experience things much more intensely now than, I mean, I've hallucinated without having any drugs since I've taken LSD.
Had very vivid light experiences. Sometimes I went into lights that are brighter than the sun.
And I see patterns in everything, in dirt, in trees. There's patterns everywhere.
And right then, I hallucinated a fish that just came and swallowed the worm. And I said to myself, oh boy, this is it. This stuff is really as good as they say it is.
Drugs are going to flip a lot of people out and probably kill a lot of people. But if they haven't the sense to find out all there is that's been written about anything they're going to use, and if they haven't the discretion to decide whether or not, in the final analysis, they're capable of handling it, then that's their problem. They will flip out, and that's how it is.
Can they truly broaden and increase the life experience? Or do they rather contract the user's world until it centers totally and wholly around the drug?
Yeah, I was looking for a lot of things because I was really strung out at that time on not finding anything in life that was too interesting.
A great, great fear of being alone. Just, I could be with a group of people, but I couldn't communicate to them.
Well, what can scare you is that all structure can break down. Everything can become one. And that's sort of scary. Another thing that can happen is when you're really far out, things just can disappear.
Because as you suggested, I'm, one, allergic to it, and two, I don't like to even entertain the notion that that sort of flip out may occur again.
I'm not afraid of anything anymore, which is, has good points and its bad points. I'm especially, not afraid to die. I became suicidal for a while, and every now and then go back to there.
The true potential of the hallucinogenic drugs remains unmeasured and largely unknown. The danger of lasting physical and psychological damage to the user remains an important factor in the rising use of these drugs.
I think a lot of kids say that at first, and then after they're through talking to Dr. Fisher and I, they change their mind. Because we certainly think rebellion is a very healthy thing, and we like rebellion. And we think great changes in society come out of rebellion. And we think that we adults have kind of screwed things up. We haven't done a very good job in the adult world. With the bomb hanging over us in Vietnam, with our crazy ideas about censorship, our crazy sexual attitudes, our abortion laws, we haven't done a very good job. However, I do think that fooling with LSD is like Russian roulette. I don't think it's like swallowing goldfish. I don't think it's spinning a hula hoop or crowding a lot of people into a telephone booth. I think, unfortunately, this can be a permanent, long-lasting, damaging situation. So I'm all for rebellion. I think a great deal of good can come out of it. I hope people who are considering using LSD, however, will think of some of these things. We don't know them all. We do know a few, though. And one of the ones that we really know is that they may be damaging themselves permanently.
The facts of the matter suggest caution. and a careful counting of the cost.
Meet Diabolic, a bank Robin Hood who baffles the cops. He robs from the rich to give to the girls. Ask Eva.
Oh, you shouldn't have done it.
She can't get a good night's sleep unless she's covered with money. Master sports car racer. Master skin diver. Master lover. Master. Ask Eva. Diabolic, the absolute gold-plated end. Ask Eva.
Fantastic Planet. Special Grand Prize, Cannes Film Festival. Fascinating, a fine adventure story. Brilliant. I recommend it. Spellbinding science fiction. Fantastic Planet.
There will come a time on the planet Earth when science and technology will be long forgotten, when humanity will rise from the ashes of nuclear holocaust, when wizards will rule the world. 20th Century Fox presents Wizards, a futuristic fantasy epic born in the mind of Ralph Bakshi, the master of animated magic. It is the story of two brothers, Avatar and Black Wolf, powerful wizards, and mortal enemies from the day they were born. Avatar, the good, who rules the peaceful kingdom of Montagar with wisdom.
Science and technology were outlawed millions of years ago.
And magic. Black Wolf, the future Führer.
Attention! Behold!
Who rediscovers the ancient secrets of propaganda, technology, and war. And sends out his mutant armies in a reign of unimaginable terror. In Wizards, you will also meet the lovely Princess Eleanor, the loyal elf Weehawk, and Peace, Black Wolf's evil robot henchman, who is transformed into an avenging instrument of justice. Wizards is a Tolkien world of fairies and elves, sorcerers, and demons. It is shot 10 million years from now, against strange and huge panoramic settings. And it is more fantastic, more enchanting, and more powerful than anything you've seen before. Wizards, the ultimate futuristic fantasy epic.
And what about you, man? What's your thing? You talk weird. What do all those words mean? Who are you? Don't look at me, man. You're not real. It's all here. Love, rape, murder, dope, grass, abortion, suicide. Something for everybody. Now hold it, man. Don't close your mind. This is what living is all about.
Now and then